My wife disappeared. Then I found her in the last place I ever expected. Let me ask you something. What would you do if the love of your life vanished without a trace, and then you found out they'd been hiding in plain sight all along? I'm not talking about a breakup. I'm talking about a full-blown disappearance. Keys still on the table, phone left charging, coffee half sipped on the kitchen counter. I lived that nightmare. And if you stick with me through this, I'll tell you exactly how it all went down. But I'll warn you, once I tell you what I found, you'll never look at the people around you the same way again. It started on a Monday. I remember because I was dreading work more than usual. My wife, Rachel, was humming some old jazz tune in the kitchen while scrambling eggs. She always hummed when she was nervous, said it helped her focus. I asked if everything was all right. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Of course. Just a weird dream last night. Nothing big." She had that look, though. You know, the one, like she wanted to say something, but change her mind. I figured maybe it was just a bad dream. We've been married 6 years. You learn not to dig too hard unless they invite you in. By 8:15 a.m., I was out the door. And by 5:30 p.m., she was gone. Not, "I left you" gone. I mean, gone. No note. No texts. No calls. The front door was locked from the inside. Her purse was still hanging on the chair. Her car was parked out front. And the weirdest part, there was a single sticky note on the fridge. It just said, "Don't trust anyone." Not even me. At first, I thought it was a joke. A prank, maybe. But Rachel wasn't like that. She didn't do mind games. And if this was a joke, she was committed, because I haven't seen her since that day. The cops were no help. Adults have the right to disappear, they said. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. No evidence of a crime. I went through everything. Phone records, bank statements, her emails. It was like she just paused her life. No transactions. No messages. Just gone. I started to question everything. Did I miss the signs? Was she planning this? But that note, that single line kept playing in my head like a broken record. Don't trust anyone. Not even me. Why would she write that? And what the hell did it mean? I quit my job a week later. I couldn't focus. I couldn't sleep. I spent every waking moment looking for her. Posted in forums. Checked missing person databases. Hired a private investigator. Nothing. But here's the thing. Exactly 23 days after she vanished, I got an email. No sender. No subject. Just one sentence. "Stop looking for her, or you'll regret it." And attached was a photo. Rachel, sitting in what looked like a hotel room. And she was smiling. Not scared. Not sad. Smiling. Like she wanted to be there. Like she wanted me to know. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't a disappearance. This was something much, much darker. That photo haunted me. Rachel, my wife, the woman who vanished without warning, just sitting there in some random hotel room, smiling at the camera like she was on vacation. Like she wanted to be seen. The email had no IP address. I checked. The metadata was wiped clean. Whoever sent it knew exactly what they were doing. And that message, "Stop looking for her, or you'll regret it," it wasn't a threat. It was a warning. But it only made me dig deeper. I zoomed in on the photo 100 times. Checked the curtains, the furniture, the reflection in her glass of water. Anything that might give me a clue. The only detail I could catch was a tiny logo on a notepad next to the bed. Hillshire Inn. I didn't recognize the name, so I searched every single Hillshire Inn in the country. There were 9. I called each one, pretending to be a guest who lost something in their room. 8 said no record of a Rachel or anyone matching her description. But the 9th one, in Pennsylvania? They hung up the moment I asked. That was enough for me. I packed a bag and drove 10 hours straight. I didn't care what I was walking into. I just needed to know why. Why would my wife leave me? Why would she warn me not to trust her? And why the hell was she smiling in that picture? When I pulled into the lot, I recognized the building instantly from the photo. The red brick, the crooked satellite dish on the roof. My heart was pounding. I walked in and tried to act normal. The guy at the front desk looked like he hadn't slept in days. Skinny, with dark circles under his eyes. I gave him a fake name and asked if I could get a room for the night. He barely looked at me. Cash only. I handed him $80 and got a room key. Room 207. Second floor. I didn't ask about Rachel. Not yet. I figured if she had stayed here, asking would spook him. So I waited. I stayed up all night, listening, watching. At 3:17 a.m., I heard a knock. Not on my door. 2 rooms down. It was a light tap. Then silence. I opened my door just enough to peek out. A woman stepped into the hallway, barefoot. She had dark hair, shorter than Rachel's, but something about the way she moved made my stomach drop. She walked to the vending machine, bought a bottle of water, then looked directly at me, dead in the eyes, like she knew I was watching. Then she smiled and walked back to her room. I couldn't move. My hands were shaking. That smile, it wasn't Rachel's, but it was familiar. Off. Empty. The next morning, I went to the front desk. The same guy was there. I told him I was looking for my wife. I showed him the photo from the email. He looked at it, then back at me. "You need to leave," he said flatly. "No." I asked him what he meant, but he just repeated it, louder. "You need to leave." And this time, he reached under the desk. I don't know if it was a bat or a gun, but I didn't stick around to find out. I got in my car and drove a mile down the road to a diner. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and just sat there trying to think. And that's when I saw her again. Rachel, walking past the diner window, alone, wearing the same blue sweater she wore the day she disappeared. I ran outside. "Rachel." She stopped, turned, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "I told you not to come." Then she stepped into a black car that pulled up out of nowhere and vanished all over again. You know that feeling when something doesn't quite make sense, but you can't stop chasing it anyway? That's where I was. I watched Rachel disappear again, this time for good, and I knew something bigger was at play. The car, the blacked-out windows, that was no coincidence. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't just turn back. If I stopped now, I might never get any answers. So I followed. Not immediately. I didn't want to risk losing her again. I needed to think. I needed a plan. I went back to the motel, took a shower, and tried to put myself together. I couldn't get her out of my head. It was like she was calling me to find her, but also pushing me away at the same time. That smile of hers, it was different this time. It didn't feel like Rachel. It felt like someone else. That's when it hit me, the hotel. The front desk guy. The way he looked at me when I showed him the photo. The warning. He knew something. So I went back. This time, I didn't go in through the front. I circled around the back of the building, where the maintenance door was cracked open. I slipped inside. It was quiet. Too quiet. I crept down the narrow hallway. My heart was pounding, every footstep echoing in the silence. I had no idea what I was looking for, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was getting closer. I reached room 207, the one I was assigned when I checked in, but the door wasn't locked. The deadbolt was undone. Without thinking, I opened it. The room was empty, just like it was the day before. But then, I noticed something. A small, almost hidden door at the back of the room. It was behind the dresser, tucked away in the corner. I pulled it open. The door creaked on its hinges, revealing a staircase leading down into darkness. I don't know what made me go down there. Maybe I thought I'd find a clue. Maybe I thought I was about to find Rachel, alive, safe, with an explanation. But the deeper I went, the colder it got. There was a hallway at the bottom of the stairs, lit by flickering overhead lights. The walls were old, covered in grime. I could feel the air growing heavier, like something or someone was watching me. I kept moving past the damp concrete walls, past doors that looked like they hadn't been opened in years. Finally, I reached a door at the very end of the hall. This one was different. It had no handle, only a small square window. I pressed my face to the glass, and there she was, Rachel. She was sitting in a chair, facing the wall. Her eyes were wide open, but they weren't seeing anything. She didn't even flinch when I knocked on the door. But the room, that's what got me. It was like something out of a horror movie. There were books piled high, scattered papers all over the floor, strange symbols scrawled on the walls in what looked like blood. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just kept staring at her, locked behind that door. And then I heard a voice behind me. "Do you know what this place is?" I spun around, heart racing, to find the same man from the front desk standing there. His face was pale, eyes wild. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. "You really shouldn't have." I opened my mouth to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. I wanted to ask him why Rachel was in that room, but the answer came before I could form the question. "Because," he said slowly, "she's not the person you think she is." He stepped forward, his hand reaching for the door. "She was never yours." I tried to stop him, but he shoved me aside, his hand now on the handle. "You should have listened to her warning." The door opened, and in the darkness behind it, I could hear Rachel muttering something in a voice that wasn't hers. I froze, and that's when I saw it. Something else was in the room with her. A shadow, lurking in the corners. I don't know how to explain what happened next. My heart was pounding so loud, I could barely hear anything else. The moment the door swung open, I expected to see Rachel, dazed, confused, maybe even hurt. But what I saw was far worse. The room was cold, too cold, and the air was thick, like something was pressing down on me from all sides. I could barely make out the details in the dark. But then, I saw her. Rachel, sitting there, staring at the floor. Her eyes were wide open, but they weren't the eyes I remembered. Her pupils were dilated, her face blank, like she wasn't really there. And the shadow, it was moving behind her. It wasn't just a shadow on the wall. It was alive. I don't know how I knew, but I could feel it. This thing was watching me. It was like it had been waiting for me. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, to get the hell out of there. But my legs wouldn't move. I was frozen. Then the voice behind me came again, low and guttural. "She's not the person you think she is," the front desk guy repeated, stepping into the room behind me. He was holding something now. A black book, old and worn. "And neither are you." I turned to look at him, my mind reeling. What was he talking about? The man's eyes didn't blink. His expression was stone cold, like he wasn't even human. He stepped toward Rachel, muttering something in a language I didn't recognize. The shadow shifted. It stretched across the room, taking shape. I could feel it moving around me, brushing past my skin, cold as ice. "You're not supposed to be here," the man whispered. His voice sounded wrong. "None of us are. But it's too late now." I wanted to ask him what he meant, but before I could speak, the air seemed to crackle with electricity. I looked at Rachel again. Her mouth was moving, but no sound came out. The shadow behind her was growing, twisting. Suddenly, Rachel's head jerked up, her eyes locking with mine. But there was nothing familiar in her gaze. She looked empty. And then for the first time, she spoke. "You shouldn't have come." Her voice was soft, almost like a whisper, but the words hit me like a slap. I felt a chill run through me, like I was hearing someone else's voice, a voice that didn't belong to her. I took a step back, but the man grabbed my arm. "Don't," he hissed. "It's too late." But it wasn't too late. Not for me. Not yet. I pulled away from him and took a step toward Rachel. "What happened to you?" I asked, my voice trembling. Her lips curled into a smile. But it wasn't Rachel's smile. It was wrong. "You were never meant to find me," she said, her voice changing, growing darker. "This isn't your fight. It's mine." Before I could react, the shadow lunged forward. It wasn't like anything I've ever seen. It wasn't a person, but it wasn't just darkness either. It was alive, a living, breathing thing, full of rage and power. I reached for Rachel, trying to grab her hand, but the shadow grabbed me instead. It pulled me toward the wall, its icy grip squeezing tighter, suffocating me. I struggled, but the harder I fought, the stronger it became. I could feel my breath leaving me. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. And then, everything went silent. I don't know how long I was trapped like that. It felt like hours, maybe days, but in reality, it was probably only minutes. Time didn't make sense anymore. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the shadow released me. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Rachel was gone. The man was gone. and the only thing left in the room was the book. It lay there, in the center of the room, untouched. Its black cover was old, its edges worn, as though it had been in the room for decades. I knew in that moment that this was the key. I didn't know how or why, but it was the key to everything. I grabbed the book, clutching it to my chest, and when I opened it, the first page made my stomach turn. It wasn't written in any language I recognized, but somehow I understood the words. And they said, "Once you open this, there is no going back."